You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius. What if I told you that the most powerful people in the room are rarely the loudest, rarely the angriest, and almost never the ones trying to prove something? What if the real language of power isn't spoken at all, but felt? Every day you watch people talk too much, react too fast, explain themselves endlessly, and slowly give away their leverage. And maybe, if we're being honest, you've done it too. We've all felt that regret after saying one sentence too many. The Stoics understood something most people never learn. Power doesn't come from dominating others, it comes from mastering yourself. From knowing when to speak, when to stay silent, when to act, and when to let others reveal themselves. This is a language few can read, and even fewer can speak fluently. In this video, you'll learn how the Stoics used restraint as influence, silence as authority, and calm as intimidation. You'll start seeing social situations, conflicts, and relationships differently, almost like you've unlocked a hidden rulebook everyone else is blind to. Watch this video till the very end because the final insight ties everything together, and once you understand it, you'll never communicate the same way again. Number 1. Silence as authority, not weakness. Silence as authority, not weakness, is something you have to relearn. The world has trained you to believe that whoever speaks first, loudest, or longest wins, that if you don't rush to fill the air, you'll be overlooked. But the Stoics understood something deeper. They knew that restraint is not absence, it is presence concentrated. When you choose silence deliberately, you are not shrinking, you are holding the center, and that changes everything. You have to start seeing silence as a position of strength. Not the silence of fear, not the silence of confusion, but the silence that comes from knowing you don't need to scramble for validation. Epictetus said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." That wasn't just clever phrasing, it was strategy. When you speak less, your words gain weight. When you pause before responding, people lean in. They feel the gravity of your attention, and gravity is authority. You don't have to chase control, you create it by slowing down. The Stoics believed that power begins with self-command. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Silence is one of the clearest expressions of that power. When someone tries to provoke you, to bait you, to pull you into their emotional storm, your refusal to react immediately is not weakness. It is discipline in action. It says without words that you are not easily moved, and people instinctively respect what they cannot easily sway. You need to practice this, not once, not occasionally, daily. Start by becoming aware of how quickly you feel the urge to speak. Notice the impulse to defend yourself, to clarify, to explain. That impulse is often rooted in insecurity, even if you don't want to admit it. The Stoic path asks you to confront that, to sit with it, to let the discomfort rise and fall without acting on it. That is inner training. That is strength being built in real time. Silence also sharpens perception. When you stop rushing to reply, you start seeing what others miss. Tone, body language, subtle shifts in energy. You begin to understand that most conversations are not really about words. They're about dominance, insecurity, approval, fear. When you stay quiet, you gather information. You become strategic. Seneca warned that he who indulges in empty fears earns himself real fears. The same is true of empty speech. When you speak carelessly, you create problems. When you conserve your words, you conserve your leverage. You might worry that silence makes you invisible. It doesn't. It makes you measured. There's a difference. Anyone can talk. Few can hold stillness without fidgeting, without nervous laughter, without filling the void. That stillness unsettles people who rely on noise, and that subtle discomfort gives you an edge. You don't need to dominate the room with volume. You dominate it with composure. So train yourself. The next time you're in a conversation, wait 2 full breaths before responding. Feel that pause. Let it stretch just slightly longer than feels comfortable. Watch how the dynamic shifts. Your words will land differently. They'll feel intentional instead of reactive. This is not about playing games, it's about embodying control. There's another layer to this. Silence protects your energy. Every argument you refuse to engage in, every pointless debate you decline, preserves your clarity. The Stoics were ruthless about guarding their inner peace. They understood that attention is finite. When you choose not to speak, you are often choosing not to descend. You are deciding that your tranquility matters more than your ego. And here's the truth you need to accept. You don't owe everyone an explanation. You don't owe immediate responses. You don't owe emotional reactions. Authority comes from self-sufficiency. When you're comfortable letting a statement hang without rushing to justify yourself, you communicate that your sense of worth isn't up for negotiation. That is powerful, quietly powerful, but this requires courage, because silence exposes you to misinterpretation. Some people may think you're aloof. Others may think you have nothing to say. Let them. The Stoic mindset reminds you that reputation is external. Character is internal. You cannot control how others label your quietness. You can control whether it stems from confidence or fear. Make sure it's the former. Try this exercise. For 1 week, commit to speaking 30% less than you normally would. Not in a withdrawn way, but in a deliberate one. Before offering your opinion, ask yourself, is this necessary? Is this useful? Is this aligned with who I want to be? If the answer is no, let it pass. You'll begin to notice how much of your speech is habit rather than intention. And as you trim the excess, what remains becomes potent. You should also practice silent endurance. Sit alone for 10 minutes each day without distraction. No phone, no music, no input, just you and your thoughts. Notice how restless your mind becomes. Notice how it craves stimulation. That restlessness is the same force that pushes you to fill conversational gaps. As you learn to sit calmly in solitude, you strengthen your ability to remain composed in dialogue. Inner quiet fuels outer authority. Remember that silence is not passivity, it is positioning. When you do speak, make it count. Keep your sentences clear, steady, free from emotional spillover. A single calm sentence delivered after a pause often carries more impact than a rapid stream of rebuttals. Your restraint amplifies your message. The Stoics weren't silent because they were timid. They were silent because they were selective. They understood timing. They understood that emotional restraint signals mastery. When you master your reactions, you become unpredictable in the best way. Others can't easily manipulate you because you don't telegraph your triggers. That unpredictability commands respect. You have to internalize this. Power does not always announce itself. Sometimes it sits back, observes, and waits. Sometimes it says nothing at all. And in that nothing, it communicates certainty. When you cultivate that certainty within yourself, silence stops feeling awkward. It starts feeling intentional. Solid, grounded. So the next time you feel pressured to prove yourself with words, pause, breathe. Let the silence stand. Trust that your presence is enough. Trust that your composure speaks. Authority is not about dominating conversation. It's about dominating yourself. And when you achieve that, your quiet will carry more force than any argument ever could. Number 2, self-control before seeking control. Before you try to control a room, a conversation, a situation, you have to control yourself. That's the quiet truth most people skip over. They chase influence first. They want authority, respect, dominance. But the Stoics understood something deeper. If you are ruled by your impulses, your moods, your cravings for validation, then you are not powerful. You are programmable. And anyone who knows which buttons to push can steer you. So if you want real power, the kind that doesn't shake when tested, you begin inside. You have to become the person who pauses. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Read that again and let it land. Freedom first, mastery second, control of others. That's not even in the sentence. The Stoics weren't obsessed with controlling the external world. They were obsessed with governing the internal one, because they knew something most people ignore. The one who cannot manage their anger, their fear, their pride is already conquered. So you start by tightening your grip on your own reactions, not with tension, not with repression, with awareness. When emotion rises in you, heat in your chest, a rush in your thoughts, don't follow it blindly. Step back, tell yourself this is just an impression. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." That line is not poetry, it's instruction, it's a command. You have power over your mind, use it. The next time something stirs you, practice the smallest act of rebellion against impulse. Delay. Count to 5 before you speak. Take one full breath before you move. Let the surge crest and fall without obeying it. You will feel the difference immediately. There's a gap between stimulus and response, and in that gap is your authority. Expand that gap. Live there, most people try to control outcomes. The Stoic trains to control interpretations. That's a radical shift. Instead of demanding that the world behave, you discipline your own perception. You question your assumptions. You soften your immediate judgments. You ask yourself, is this within my control? If it isn't, you let it go. If it is, you handle it calmly. That's it. Simple, not easy, but simple. And here's the paradox: when you stop trying to control everything outside you, you become far more composed inside. That composure becomes visible. It becomes felt. Others sense it. They recognize that you are not easily shaken. And that is influence in its purest form. But don't romanticize this. Self-control is not a personality trait you're born with. It's trained, forged, repeated daily in small, almost invisible ways. You build it like muscle. You wake up and choose discipline in something minor. You sit with discomfort instead of escaping it. You resist the urge to check, to react, to indulge. These micro decisions accumulate. Over time, they change your posture toward life. Try this. Every day, choose one small act of voluntary restraint. It doesn't matter what it is. Point is not the act itself. The point is teaching your nervous system that you are in charge, that you can say no, that you can wait. Seneca wrote, "He who is brave is free." Bravery isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the courage to face your own impulses and refuse to be ruled by them. Notice how much of the world runs on reaction. Outrage, immediate replies, defensive words, rapid-fire judgments. If you step out of that rhythm, you stand apart. Not because you are louder, but because you are steadier. And steadiness unsettles those who expect chaos. Powerful language begins with emotional neutrality. If your tone shifts every time your ego is touched, you broadcast vulnerability. If your words rush out tangled with frustration, you surrender leverage. But when you regulate your breathing, slow your cadence, and speak only after choosing your words, you signal something unspoken. You are not at the mercy of this moment. Practice controlling your body to control your mind. Slow your breathing intentionally. Inhale for 4 counts, hold for 4, exhale for 6. Do it until your pulse softens. Your physiology will follow your rhythm, and once your body settles, your thoughts lose their frantic edge. This isn't mystical, it's mechanical, and you can use it anytime. Then there's your inner dialogue. This is where most battles are lost before they begin. If you allow your mind to spiral into worst-case stories, your emotions will obey those stories. The Stoics were ruthless about examining their thoughts. Marcus wrote reminders to himself constantly. He corrected his own mind. You should do the same. When a dramatic thought appears, challenge it. Ask, is this true? Is this useful? Is this within my control? If it fails those tests, discard it. Write down your recurring triggers, not the situations, the feelings, impatience, pride, envy, anxiety. Look at them without shame. Then rehearse how you will respond differently next time. Visualization isn't fantasy, it's preparation. See yourself remaining calm. See yourself choosing silence. See yourself holding your posture steady. The brain rehearses what it imagines. Train it deliberately. Understand this clearly. Self-control is not suppression, it's direction. You are not burying emotion, you are steering it. Anger can become clarity. Fear can become alertness. Desire can become disciplined ambition, but only if you catch it early and guide it instead of being dragged by it. You don't raise your voice to command respect. You lower your reactivity. You don't tighten your grip to gain control. You loosen your attachment to outcomes. That's the language of power. Quiet, grounded, unhurried, each night review yourself. This is a Stoic ritual worth adopting. Ask, where did I lose control today? Where did I hold it? Don't judge yourself harshly. Observe. Seneca recommended this exact practice, examining your day before sleep. When you shine light on your own behavior, you refine it. Gradually, the moments where you lose yourself become fewer. And as your self-command strengthens, something subtle happens. You no longer crave control over others the way you once did. You don't need to dominate. You don't need to force agreement. You don't need the room to bend to you. Your stability is enough. You become selective with your energy, deliberate with your speech, measured in your responses. That restraint feels powerful because it is. So stop chasing control outward. Turn inward first. Master your breath. Master your tone. Master your thoughts. Master the space between stimulus and response. Repeat it until it becomes instinct. Power isn't loud, it isn't frantic, it doesn't beg, it doesn't chase, it governs itself. And when you govern yourself, you no longer need to grasp for control, you already have it. Number 3, responding slowly to stay unmovable. Responding slowly is not weakness, it is command. Most people react as if they are being pulled by invisible strings. A comment lands and they snap back. A tone shifts and their voice hardens. An insult flickers in the air and suddenly their heart is racing and their mouth is running ahead of their judgment. But you don't have to live like that. You don't have to be dragged around by every stimulus. The Stoics understood something most people forget. Power lives in the pause. When you respond slowly, you create space between what happens and what you choose to do about it. And in that space, you become unmovable, not rigid, not cold, just grounded, deliberate. In control. Epictetus put it plainly, it's not what happens to you but how you react to it that matters. Read that again, not what happens, how you react. That means the moment before you respond is sacred territory. That is where your strength is forged. You've probably been conditioned to think that quick replies signal intelligence or dominance. They don't. They signal reflex. When you fire back instantly, you reveal that your emotions are steering the wheel. But when you slow down, when you let a few seconds stretch, you signal something else entirely. You show that you are not easily shaken, that your inner world does not tip over because someone else raised their voice or tried to provoke you. You are steady. You are not in a hurry to defend, explain, or attack. That calm restraint carries weight. So start practicing the pause, make it a discipline. When words come at you, sharp, charged, heavy, don't rush to meet them. Let them land. Let them dissolve. Feel the urge to react. Notice it, don't obey it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." The mind is your territory, guard it. Don't let it be invaded by impulse. There's a subtle shift that happens when you respond slowly. You stop being predictable. And unpredictability, when grounded in calm, is a form of authority. If people know they can press a button and get an instant reaction from you, they will keep pressing it. But if they encounter stillness instead, measured breathing, thoughtful silence, controlled speech, they start to realize you're not easy to move. You become like stone in a river. The current hits you, but you don't rush downstream with it. This doesn't mean you become silent forever. It means you speak when you choose to, not when you're triggered. There's a difference. One is compulsion. The other is command, and you want command. Train yourself in small ways first. When someone finishes speaking, count 3 slow breaths before you answer. Not in a dramatic way, quietly. Inhale, hold, exhale again, let your body settle. You'll notice how much of your first reaction softens in those few seconds. Words that felt urgent suddenly feel unnecessary. That sharp edge dulls. What remains is clarity. That clarity is where your power lives. Another exercise, deliberately lower the speed of your speech. Not sluggish, just slower than usual. Feel each word as it leaves your mouth. Choose it, taste it. When you do this, your mind cannot race ahead. It has to align with your intention. Seneca advised the greatest remedy for anger is delay. Delay, not suppression, not explosion, delay, because time dissolves emotional excess. Give yourself that time. You might feel uncomfortable at first. The silence can feel exposed. The pause can feel like vulnerability. Your ego may whisper that you're losing ground, that you should jump in and assert yourself immediately. Let that whisper pass. It's just noise. Remember, reacting quickly often serves the ego, not your values. Slowing down serves your character. When you respond slowly, you also force others to reveal more. Silence and measured pacing draw out additional information. People often fill the gap. They elaborate, they clarify. They sometimes even contradict themselves. If you rush, you cut that process short. You wait, you see more. And seeing more gives you leverage, not in a manipulative sense, but in an awareness sense. You operate with fuller understanding. Make it a rule, no immediate emotional replies, especially when you feel heat rising, especially when you feel misunderstood or challenged. That is precisely when your pause matters most. Tell yourself, I don't move fast when I feel pressure. Repeat it. Condition it into your nervous system. You are training steadiness, and steadiness takes repetition. Try this mental drill. Imagine every interaction as a test of your internal stability. Not a test of wit, not a contest of dominance, a test of composure. When you see it that way, your priority shifts. You stop aiming to win the exchange and start aiming to remain centered. That alone changes everything. Your tone softens, your posture settles, your eyes become steady. Your words come fewer but stronger. There's something almost magnetic about someone who doesn't rush. It signals depth. It suggests they are thinking beyond the surface. It communicates that they are not desperate to prove themselves. And desperation is the opposite of power. Power is patient. You don't need to announce this shift, just embody it. The next time you feel the impulse to interrupt, don't. The next time you want to defend yourself instantly, wait. The next time you feel an emotional spike, breathe into it instead of speaking from it. Build that muscle. Every pause is a repetition. Every delayed response is a small victory over reactivity. And understand this clearly. Responding slowly does not mean you lack conviction. It means your conviction is anchored. You are choosing your response, not leaking it. That difference is everything. You are not here to be a reflex machine. You are here to exercise judgment. The Stoics knew that freedom is internal. If you cannot control your response time, you are not free. You are programmable. But when you decide that no one gets instant access to your reactions, you reclaim sovereignty over your inner world. So practice stillness daily. Sit in silence for 5 minutes and observe your thoughts without acting on them. That's response training. When a thought arises, don't chase it. Let it pass. This strengthens the same muscle you use in conversation. Another drill, read a challenging quote from a Stoic and reflect on it for a full minute before forming an opinion. Teach your mind to slow down, to digest, to consider. You don't need to be louder to be powerful. You need to be steadier. And steadiness is built in those quiet, almost invisible pauses. Respond slowly. Breathe first. Choose your words like tools, not weapons. Let others rush. Let them scramble. You remain anchored. That is the language of power, not speed, not noise, control. And it begins in the space between stimulus and response, where you decide who you are going to be. Number 4, detachment from praise and insult. Detachment from praise and insult is one of those quiet disciplines that changes the entire texture of your life, but only if you actually practice it. It sounds simple, almost too simple. Don't get carried away when someone applauds you. Don't crumble when someone criticizes you. Stay steady. Stay centered. But if you're honest with yourself, you know how quickly your mood can rise or fall based on someone else's words. A compliment can inflate you. An insult can haunt you. And the Stoics understood something most people still miss. The moment your emotional state depends on applause or approval, you've handed away your power. You don't have to live like that. Epictetus put it bluntly. If someone speaks badly of you, do not defend yourself against the accusations, but reply, "He was ignorant of my other faults, else he would not have mentioned these alone." There's humor in that, yes, but there's also steel. He's reminding you that other people's opinions are partial, distorted, and often uninformed. Why should your inner climate be controlled by something so unreliable? Why should your peace hinge on someone else's passing judgment? Start noticing how praise affects you. Not just insults, praise. When someone speaks well of you, does your chest lift a little? Do you feel subtly compelled to maintain that image? Do you begin performing, adjusting, shaping yourself so the applause doesn't stop? That's the hidden trap. Praise can chain you just as tightly as criticism. It tempts you to become an actor in your own life, constantly scanning the room for approval. The Stoics would urge you to ask, is that freedom? Or is that dependency dressed up as validation? Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, receive without pride, let go without attachment. That's the rhythm you want to cultivate. Receive the compliment, don't swat it away awkwardly, but don't swallow it whole either. Let it pass through you. The same with insult. Hear it, assess it, release it. You are not required to internalize every word spoken in your direction. Here, the shift you need to make, anchor your worth internally, not in the echo of other people's voices, not in praise that fades by tomorrow, not in insults that reveal more about the speaker than about you. Anchor it in your character, in your values, in whether you acted with integrity today. That's it. That's the metric, and you can train this. Start with a simple daily practice. At the end of each day, sit quietly for 5 minutes. Ask yourself, did I act according to my principles? Was I honest? Was I disciplined? Was I fair? Do not ask, was I admired? Or did people approve? That's noise. Focus on your conduct. Seneca wrote, the greatest blessings of mankind are within us and within our reach. He meant your reason, your judgment, your moral compass. Those are yours. No one can give them to you and no one can take them away unless you let them. Another exercise, rehearse criticism in your mind before it arrives. Not obsessively, calmly, tell yourself someone may misunderstand me, someone may judge me unfairly, someone may dismiss my efforts. Then remind yourself that is outside my control, my response is not. This is straight from the Stoic playbook. By premeditating adversity, you blunt its sting. You stop being shocked by it. You stop being owned by it. But don't harden into indifference. This isn't about becoming cold or unfeeling. It's about becoming sovereign. There's a difference. You can care about doing well without caring about being praised. You can listen to feedback without collapsing under it. Detachment doesn't mean apathy. It means clarity. It means you understand what belongs to you and what doesn't. When someone insults you, pause before reacting. Feel the impulse to defend, to retaliate, to correct the record. Just notice it. Breathe once. Twice. Ask yourself, is this within my control? Their words are not, my reaction is. If the criticism is valid, take it as information, quietly improve. If it's false, let it dissolve. You don't need to wrestle every opinion to the ground. The Stoics believe that your tranquility is too valuable to trade for petty battles. And when praise comes, practice restraint. Internally say, this is their perception, not my identity. Let it warm you briefly, then release it. Don't replay it all night. Don't build a throne out of it. The more you detach from praise, the less you fear losing it. That's power, real power. The kind that makes you steady in rooms where others are constantly adjusting themselves to be liked. There's also a deeper layer here. When you detach from praise and insult, you become harder to manipulate. Think about that. If someone knows they can flatter you into compliance, they will. If someone knows they can shame you into submission, they might. But if you remain composed, unmoved by flattery, unshaken by ridicule, you become unpredictable in the best way. You cannot be steered by emotional bait. You choose your actions based on principle, not pressure. Practice this deliberately. The next time you receive praise, respond simply, thank you. Nothing more, no self-inflation, no false modesty, just calm acknowledgement. The next time you face criticism, say, I'll consider that. Then actually consider it. Strip it of emotional charge. Extract any useful truth. Discard the rest. Move on. Do not carry it like a weight. Remind yourself often of how fleeting public opinion is. Today's hero becomes tomorrow's afterthought. Today's villain becomes tomorrow's redemption story. Public perception shifts like sand. Why anchor your identity to something so unstable? Marcus Aurelius warned himself constantly about this. He wrote about the emptiness of fame and how quickly even the most celebrated names fade into obscurity. If that's true for emperors, it's certainly true for you. Let that realization free you rather than depress you. You don't need everyone to understand you. You don't need universal approval. You need alignment with your own conscience, that's it. And the more you practice detachment, the lighter you feel, the less reactive, the more deliberate. So start small. Today, catch yourself when you crave validation. Notice it without judgment. Then redirect your focus to the task in front of you. Do the work well for its own sake. Act honorably because that's who you choose to be, not because someone is watching. Over time, something subtle but profound happens. Insults lose their venom. Praise loses its intoxicating pull. You become steady, grounded, harder to rattle. And in that steadiness, there's a quiet authority. People sense it. They may not even know why, but they feel it. You're not performing, you're not posturing, you're simply anchored. That is the language of power the Stoics understood. Not loud dominance, not dramatic gestures, but inner independence. The refusal to let external noise dictate internal peace. So train yourself every day. Detach a little more. Release the need to be adored. Release the fear of being disliked. Stand firm in your values. As Epictetus said, make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. Praise and insult fall into that second category. They will happen. Let them. Your task is to remain yourself, calm, disciplined, unshaken. That is strength, and it's yours to claim. Number 5, power comes from mastering reactions. Power doesn't begin with control over other people. It begins with control over yourself. That's the part most people miss. You've been taught to think that power looks loud, dominant, commanding. But the Stoics understood something subtler and far more dangerous. Real power is quiet. It lives in the space between stimulus and response. It shows up in the moment when something provokes you and you choose not to flinch. That choice, so small it's almost invisible, is where your authority is forged. You cannot stop people from speaking carelessly. You cannot prevent circumstances from shifting without warning. You cannot control the tone of someone else's voice or the way they interpret your silence, but you can control your reaction. And according to Epictetus, that's the only thing that truly belongs to you. He said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Read that again slowly. Let it sink in. Your reaction is your territory. Guard it like sacred ground. When you react impulsively, you hand over your power. You become predictable. You become steerable. Anyone who knows how to push your buttons can move you like a lever. But when you pause, when you slow the surge of emotion and choose your response deliberately, you become unshakable. You become difficult to manipulate. That stillness unsettles people. It communicates something without words. You are not ruled by impulse. This is not about suppressing emotion. The Stoics were not stone statues pretending not to feel. Seneca wrote extensively about anger, grief, fear. He didn't deny their existence. He warned against being mastered by them. There's a difference. You will feel irritation. You will feel disappointment. You will feel the flash of defensiveness rising in your chest. That's human, but you don't have to obey it. You can observe it. You can let it crest and fall without acting on it. Start practicing that observation today. When something stirs you, anything, don't respond immediately. Instead, take one slow breath, just one. Notice the sensation in your body. Label it quietly: anger, frustration, anxiety. By naming it, you separate from it. You remind yourself that you are the observer, not the emotion itself. That simple pause changes everything. It creates space. And in that space, you choose who you will be. The Stoics called this discipline of perception. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Notice the emphasis. Power over your mind, not power over outcomes, not power over other people's opinions. Power over your interpretation. When you reinterpret an insult as noise, it loses force. When you reinterpret a setback as training, it becomes fuel. The event stays the same. Your reaction transforms its meaning. You need to train this like a muscle. Don't wait for major challenges. Use small irritations as practice weights. When impatience rises, soften your jaw. When annoyance sparks, relax your shoulders. When you feel the urge to interrupt, let the silence stretch instead. These are micro-disciplines. They look insignificant, but over time they rewire you. You begin to experience emotion without being consumed by it. That's mastery. And here's the deeper layer. When you control your reaction, you control the narrative. People expect escalation. They anticipate defensiveness. They brace for retaliation. When you offer composure instead, you disrupt the script. You stay grounded. You respond with measured words or sometimes with none at all. That restraint carries weight. It signals that your internal world is not easily invaded. This doesn't mean becoming passive. It means becoming precise. Reactivity is sloppy. Mastery is sharp. Before you speak, ask yourself, is this necessary? Is this aligned with who I want to be? Is this reaction strengthening me or diminishing me? That brief internal interrogation builds self-command. Over time, it becomes automatic. You stop chasing every emotional impulse. You choose which ones deserve expression. Try this exercise daily. At the end of each day, reflect on 3 moments when you reacted. Not the dramatic ones, just ordinary interactions. Ask yourself, did I choose that response or did it choose me? If you lost composure, don't condemn yourself. Study it. What triggered you? What belief was threatened? Awareness is progress. Tomorrow, you get another chance to respond differently. Another practice, negative visualization. The Stoics used it to prepare their minds. Imagine briefly being criticized. Imagine plans changing. Imagine discomfort. Feel the first flicker of resistance and then rehearse calm. Picture yourself breathing evenly, speaking slowly, or choosing silence. By mentally rehearsing composure, you make it more accessible in reality. You are priming your nervous system to stay steady. Understand this clearly. When you master your reactions, you reduce fear. Fear thrives on unpredictability and lack of control. But if you trust your ability to respond wisely, you no longer dread events themselves. Whatever happens, you know you will meet it with discipline. That confidence radiates. It changes your posture, your tone, your presence. There is also freedom in this mastery. When you stop reacting to every provocation, you reclaim energy. Emotional outbursts are exhausting. Rumination drains you. Defensiveness ties you in knots. Calm responses conserve strength. You remain clear-headed, focused, intentional. You stop wasting yourself on noise. Remind yourself often, your reaction is a choice. It may not feel like one at first. Emotions move quickly, but speed does not eliminate agency. The more you practice slowing down, the more you recognize the fork in the road. One path leads to impulsive release. The other leads to deliberate expression. Choose the second again and again until it becomes your default. You will stumble, that's part of the discipline. The Stoics were relentless students of themselves. They journaled, they examined their thoughts, they corrected gently but firmly. You must do the same. Hold yourself accountable without harshness. Improvement requires patience. Over time, something subtle shifts. You stop seeking validation through reaction. You stop proving yourself through emotional intensity. You become less concerned with winning exchanges and more committed to preserving your equilibrium. That inner steadiness becomes your signature. People feel it. They sense that you are anchored. And here's the paradox. When you no longer react automatically, you gain influence. Not because you dominate, but because you are dependable. Your responses are measured. Your words carry intention. You are not thrown off balance easily. That reliability is magnetic. It builds trust. It commands respect without demanding it, so commit to this discipline. Decide that your reactions will no longer be dictated by impulse. Breathe before speaking. Observe before judging. Pause before escalating. Repeat this until it feels natural. Power is not loud. It is not frantic. It is not reactive. It is controlled. And that control begins and ends with you. Number 6, saying less to mean more. There's a quiet kind of power in restraint, and you can feel it the moment you decide not to fill the space with noise. Saying less to mean more isn't about being cold or distant. It's about becoming deliberate. It's about understanding that words are tools, and when you scatter them carelessly, they lose their edge. The Stoics knew this. Epictetus put it plainly: be mostly silent or speak only what is necessary and in few words. That isn't just advice about etiquette, it's strategy. When you speak less, you force your words to carry weight. You create density. You become harder to ignore because you are no longer predictable. You've probably noticed how easy it is to over-explain, to justify, to soften, to keep talking because silence feels uncomfortable. But that discomfort is your training ground. When you rush to fill a pause, you leak authority. When you explain beyond what is required, you dilute your message. The Stoics would remind you that self-control begins with the tongue. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Notice the second half of that sentence. Not everything needs to be said. Not every thought deserves expression. You gain power the moment you accept that your impulse to speak is not a command, it's just a suggestion. So start practicing restraint intentionally. The next time you feel the urge to elaborate, stop at the essential point. Let your sentence end earlier than usual. Let it feel slightly unfinished in your mind. Then stay there. Feel the tension. Breathe through it. That pause is not weakness, it's presence. You are training yourself to tolerate silence without scrambling to escape it. And in that stillness, something shifts. People lean in. Attention sharpens. Your words stop sounding like chatter and start sounding like decisions. Saying less also forces you to think more. You can't rely on volume to carry your message. You have to choose your words with precision. Seneca advised, "Let us speak only what is necessary." That means you weigh your thoughts before releasing them. You ask yourself, is this essential? Is this aligned with my values? Is this useful? If the answer is no, you let it go. You don't need to broadcast every reaction. You don't need to narrate your internal state. The Stoic understands that power grows in proportion to discipline, and discipline shows up in speech. There's another layer to this. When you speak less, you reveal less, and that protects your inner world. You don't owe everyone access to your emotions, your plans, your vulnerabilities. You can be open without being exposed. You can be warm without being porous. By choosing your words carefully, you create boundaries that don't require explanation. You simply decide what stays inside and what steps into the light. That decision alone builds a quiet authority. You are no longer reacting. You are selecting. But don't confuse brevity with bluntness. The Stoic way isn't about sharp, cutting minimalism. It's about clarity. You speak clearly. You speak calmly. You don't pile adjectives on top of insecurity. You don't decorate your message to win approval. You state what matters and let it stand. That steadiness unsettles people who are used to noise. They may try to pull more out of you. Let them try. Hold your ground. Remember Epictetus again. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. Listening is not passive. It's an active demonstration of control. When you listen more than you speak, you gather information. You observe patterns. You understand motives. And you respond from strength, not impulse. If you want to make this practical, begin with a daily constraint. Choose 1 conversation each day where you intentionally reduce your word count by half. Say what needs to be said and then stop. Notice how your body reacts. Notice the urge to add 1 more sentence. Resist it. Over time, you'll start noticing how often you speak to relieve your own anxiety rather than to communicate something meaningful. That awareness is gold. It shows you where you're still ruled by discomfort. Another exercise, practice the deliberate pause. Before responding to any question or comment, count to 3 in your mind. Not dramatically, quietly. This small delay interrupts impulsive speech. It gives you space to choose instead of react. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself to be like the promontory against which the waves continually break. You can become that mental promontory. Words come at you. Pressure comes at you. You remain steady. You respond when you decide to, not when you're provoked. There's also power in unfinished sentences that don't beg for validation. You don't need to tack on reassurance. You don't need to cushion every statement with apology. Stand by what you say. Let your words land, and then let the silence expand around them. That silence is not empty, it's charged. It signals that you are comfortable with yourself, that you don't need constant affirmation, that you trust the weight of what you've said. This habit will feel unnatural at first. You might worry that you seem distant. You might fear being misunderstood. That's fine. Growth often feels like friction. But remind yourself why you're doing this. You are training yourself to value quality over quantity. You are building a presence that doesn't depend on volume. Seneca wrote, "The wise man is content with himself." That contentment shows up in speech. When you are content, you don't scramble for attention. You don't chase approval through endless explanation. You speak because you choose to, not because you need to. And here's something subtle but important: saying less sharpens your listening. When you're not preparing your next line, you actually hear what's being said. You notice tone, you notice hesitation, you catch what others miss. That awareness becomes leverage. You respond with precision because you understand the full picture. People begin to associate you with clarity, with calm, with depth, not because you're louder, but because you're deliberate. You can also practice writing fewer words. Take a thought and compress it into one sentence, then compress it again. Strip away what's ornamental, keep what's essential. This mental editing strengthens your internal discipline. Over time, your speech will mirror that clarity. You'll stop rambling, you'll stop wandering. You'll say what you mean and mean what you say. Remember, this isn't about silence for its own sake. It's about impact. A single measured sentence can outweigh a paragraph of nervous chatter. A calm no can carry more authority than a 5-minute justification. A quiet observation can cut deeper than a loud opinion. When you understand this, you stop equating verbosity with intelligence. You realize that power often whispers. So begin today, speak a little less. Listen a little more. Pause before you answer, trim your sentences, resist the urge to fill every gap. And when you do speak, let your words be steady, intentional, and aligned with your values. The Stoics didn't chase influence through noise. They cultivated it through discipline. You can do the same. You don't need more words, you need stronger ones. Number 7, emotional restraint as dominance. Emotional restraint is not weakness, it is not suppression. It is not the cold, brittle silence of someone who is afraid to feel. It is command. And when you begin to understand that, really understand it, you start to move differently. You stop chasing the last word. You stop reacting on cue. You stop handing over your inner world to anyone who knows how to provoke you. The Stoics knew this. You can hear it in the steady voice of Marcus Aurelius when he reminds you, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. That strength he speaks of is not loud. It doesn't flare up or demand recognition. It sits still. It waits. It chooses. When you practice emotional restraint, you are practicing dominance over yourself first. And that is the only dominance that matters. Anyone can dominate a room with volume. Anyone can dominate a conversation with interruption. That kind of force is cheap. It's unstable, it trembles beneath the surface. But when you refuse to be yanked around by irritation, by insult, by praise, by pressure, you become immovable. You are no longer a puppet of circumstance. You become, in the Stoic sense, sovereign. Epictetus put it plainly, no man is free who is not master of himself. Read that again. Let it settle. If you cannot control your impulses, your temper, your emotional reflexes, you are not in control. You are being controlled. So start small. Start by noticing the surge, the quickening in your chest, the tightening in your jaw, the urge to respond immediately, to defend, to prove, to retaliate. Don't shame it, just observe it. The Stoics were obsessed with this practice of observation. They called it prosach, attention to oneself. You must cultivate this watchfulness. When the emotion rises, you do not immediately obey it. You pause, even one breath, especially one breath. That breath is power reclaimed. It is a wedge between stimulus and response. In that wedge, you choose who you will be, and here is where dominance emerges, not because you overpower others, but because you refuse to be overpowered internally. When you remain steady while others are turbulent, you shift the balance of energy. You are no longer participating in chaos. You are defining the tempo. Seneca wrote, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay. Delay is not cowardice, delay is strategic. When you slow your response, you send a subtle message to yourself and to others that your reactions are deliberate, not automatic. You are not governed by impulse. You govern it. This takes training. Do not expect mastery overnight. You must rehearse restraint the way an athlete rehearses movement. Try this. Throughout your day, deliberately slow your reactions. When something irritates you, count backward from 5 before you speak. When you feel the impulse to interrupt, let the other person finish. When you want to fire off a quick reply, wait. Let the emotion cool by even 10%. These small acts are repetitions. Each repetition strengthens the muscle of composure, and over time, that composure becomes your default posture. Understand something deeper too. Emotional restraint is not about feeling less. It is about being ruled less. You can feel anger without becoming anger. You can feel excitement without becoming reckless. You can feel fear without surrendering to it. This distinction is everything. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that impressions are not commands, they are suggestions. You must adopt that mindset. When an emotion appears, say internally, "This is only an impression." That phrase alone creates space. In that space, you decide the appropriate response. Dominance in this Stoic sense is quiet authority. It is the ability to remain centered while others spin. When you do not flinch emotionally, you become difficult to manipulate. You become unpredictable in the best way. People cannot press your buttons if you refuse to install them. And this does not require coldness. It requires clarity. You see the situation for what it is. You refuse to exaggerate it with your imagination. Epictetus warned that it is not events that disturb you, but your judgments about them. So train your judgments. Question them. Ask yourself, is this truly catastrophic, or am I adding drama? More often than not, you are adding drama. You must also practice detachment from praise. This is where many stumble. They learn to restrain anger but become intoxicated by approval. That too is a form of slavery. If criticism can control you, so can flattery. The Stoic path demands independence from both. When you are praised, accept it lightly. When you are criticized, examine it calmly. In both cases, remain anchored in your values, not in external noise. This steadiness builds a kind of gravitational pull. People sense it. They may not articulate it, but they feel it. You are not chasing validation. You are not scrambling to defend your image. You are grounded. Try another exercise. At the end of each day, review your emotional responses, not harshly, honestly. Ask yourself where you reacted too quickly, where you allowed irritation to dictate your tone, where you maintained composure. This nightly reflection was a Stoic ritual. Seneca described examining his conscience before sleep, measuring his progress. You should do the same. Growth requires awareness. Awareness requires review. There will be moments when restraint feels unnatural. Your ego will protest. It will whisper that if you do not react strongly, you will appear weak. Do not believe it. Strength does not announce itself through volatility. It reveals itself through control. A person who can shout is not impressive. A person who can remain calm when shouting would be easier. That is rare. And rarity carries weight. You are building that rarity. Every time you choose restraint over reaction, you are constructing a reputation within yourself. You begin to trust your own steadiness. That trust changes your posture, your tone, your timing. You no longer rush. You no longer scramble. You move with deliberation. Emotional restraint becomes less about effort and more about identity. You are the kind of person who does not explode. You are the kind of person who considers before speaking. You are the kind of person who cannot be baited easily. And here is the paradox. When you dominate yourself, you no longer need to dominate others. The need to overpower dissolves. You become firm without aggression, decisive without hostility. Calm without passivity. That balance is powerful because it is balanced. It is not extreme. It is not theatrical. It is stable. So commit to this discipline. Guard your reactions. Slow your impulses. Question your judgments. Practice delay. Reflect nightly. Repeat. Emotional restraint is not repression. It is refinement. It is the art of feeling deeply while responding wisely. And when you master that art, you will understand what the Stoics knew all along. The highest form of power is self-command. Number 8, letting actions speak louder than words. There's a quiet kind of authority that doesn't beg to be noticed. It doesn't rush to explain itself. It doesn't scramble to defend its position. It simply moves steadily and deliberately and lets the movement do the talking. That's the language of power the Stoics understood so well. They knew that words are cheap when they aren't backed by action. They knew that talking about virtue is easy, but embodying it is rare, and rarity carries weight. When you let your actions speak louder than your words, you stop trying to convince the world of who you are and start showing it calmly, consistently, without theatrics. You don't need to announce your discipline. You practice it. You don't need to advertise your strength. You demonstrate it in how you handle pressure. You don't need to declare your values. You live them. As Epictetus said, don't explain your philosophy, embody it. That line should echo in your mind whenever you feel the urge to over-explain yourself. Whenever you feel pulled to justify, defend, or broadcast your intentions. Pause, breathe, and ask yourself, can I let my behavior carry this instead? There's something deeply unsettling in a powerful way about a person who doesn't rush to speak, not because they're timid, but because they're grounded. They're not performing, they're not posturing, they are rooted in what they've chosen to stand for. And when you become that person, you shift the dynamic in any room you enter. You don't need to dominate the conversation. Your restraint becomes the statement. Your composure becomes the message. But this takes discipline, real discipline. You have to resist the itch to be seen as impressive. You have to let go of the craving for immediate validation. The Stoics were relentless about this. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself, over and over, reminders not to be distracted by applause or criticism. Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. That's your challenge. Stop narrating the kind of person you want to become. Become it, quietly, persistently, without fanfare. When you rely on action over speech, you reclaim your energy. Words scatter energy, they leak it. They disperse your focus into explanations, defenses, and promises. Action condenses energy. It channels it into a single, undeniable direction. You move, you follow through, you stay steady. That steadiness builds a reputation more durable than any declaration. Start small. Train yourself not to announce your intentions prematurely. If you commit to improving yourself in some way, resist the urge to talk about it. Let the change unfold in silence. Feel the strength that comes from private progress. There's a certain sharpness that develops when you work without an audience. You become less attached to praise, less shaken by doubt, more anchored in the process itself. Here's a simple exercise. For the next 7 days, practice restraint in speech. Before you speak about something you plan to do, pause, ask yourself if it's necessary. If it's not, hold it. Let your effort remain invisible for now. Notice how uncomfortable that feels at first. Good. That discomfort is revealing how much you've depended on external acknowledgement. Stay with it. The silence will sharpen you. Another practice, focus on alignment. Each night, reflect briefly and ask, did my actions today match my stated values? Not your intentions, not your excuses, your actions. The Stoics were obsessed with this kind of self-audit. They believed self-examination was the gateway to growth. Seneca wrote about reviewing his day before sleep, measuring himself not against perfection but against progress. You can do the same. No drama, no self-condemnation, just clarity. Understand this clearly. When your actions consistently align with your words begin to carry more weight. You won't need many of them, a few will do. Because people will have learned that when you speak, it means something. You don't overpromise, You don't exaggerate, you don't posture, you act. And that consistency builds quiet authority. There's also a deeper layer here. Letting actions speak isn't just about impressing others. It's about mastering yourself. Every time you choose to act instead of argue, to demonstrate instead of declare, you strengthen your inner discipline. You teach yourself that you don't need to win every verbal exchange. You don't need to be understood immediately. You don't need to assert dominance through noise. You let your behavior settle the matter. And here's the paradox. The less you try to project power, the more you radiate it. When you stop chasing recognition, you become harder to shake. Criticism loses its sting because you're not trying to maintain a verbal image. Praise loses its intoxication because you're not relying on it for identity. You simply continue your work. Practice this. The next time you feel compelled to defend yourself in a heated moment, resist the reflex. Slow down your breathing. Let there be space. Ask yourself whether the situation truly requires a verbal response or whether your conduct over time will answer more effectively. Often time and consistency are stronger rebuttals than any clever retort. This doesn't mean you become passive. Stoicism is not about silence for its own sake. It's about intentionality. Speak when it serves virtue. Act when it advances what matters. But don't speak merely to soothe your ego. Don't act merely to be seen acting. Strip away the performance. Keep the principle. You may notice that as you adopt this habit, some people will test you. They may interpret your restraint as weakness at first. Let them stay steady. Over time, consistency erodes doubt. Your reliability becomes obvious. Your calm becomes unmistakable. And those who once questioned you will begin to measure their words more carefully around you, not because you demanded respect, but because you demonstrated self-command. The Stoics understood that true influence flows from character, and character is revealed through repeated behavior, not slogans, not declarations, repeated behavior. If you want to cultivate the language of power, focus less on sounding impressive and more on being dependable. Show up. Follow through. Maintain composure. Keep your promises. That's it. Simple. Not easy, but simple. Build a daily ritual of deliberate action. Choose one meaningful task each day and complete it fully without announcing it, without seeking acknowledgement. Let the satisfaction be internal. Feel how that strengthens your spine. Feel how it reduces your dependence on external noise. And remember this, words are wind, action is stone. Wind can be loud, dramatic, forceful, but stone endures. If you want your presence to carry weight, become stone. Solid, consistent, unmoved by fleeting reactions. You don't need to convince anyone of your growth. You don't need to argue your worth. You don't need to broadcast your discipline. Live it, practice it, repeat it. Let your life become the argument. In the end, power isn't in what you say about yourself. It's in what you repeatedly do when no one is applauding. So tighten your focus, lower your volume, raise your standards, and let your actions speak so clearly that your words become almost unnecessary. Number 9, choosing when not to engage. There is a kind of strength you begin to taste when you realize you don't have to answer everything. You don't have to respond to every comment, correct every misunderstanding, or chase every provocation. The Stoics understood this deeply. They knew that power is not loud. It does not scramble to defend itself. It does not leap at every invitation to argue. It chooses. And when you learn to choose when not to engage, you stop leaking energy into places that do not deserve it. You become deliberate. You become measured. You become formidable in a quiet, unsettling way. You've been conditioned to think that silence is weakness and that immediate response equals confidence. But look closely at your impulses. Notice how quickly you feel the urge to react. That urge is not strength, it is compulsion. And compulsion is the opposite of power. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Read that again. If someone can bait you into reacting, they own a piece of your attention. They tug and you move. That is not mastery, that is reflex. Stoic power begins the moment you pause and decide that your attention is too valuable to be thrown around like loose change. So start there. The next time you feel the internal spark, the tightening in your chest, the rush of heat that says, "Answer this now, don't." Just breathe, not dramatically, quietly. Inhale slowly, exhale slower, create a small pocket of space between stimulus and response. Viktor Frankl echoed the Stoic spirit when he wrote about that space, reminding us that in the gap lies our power to choose. You don't have to fill the silence. You don't have to rush in. Let the moment stretch. Let it be slightly uncomfortable. That discomfort is the sound of your old habits dissolving. Choosing not to engage is not avoidance. It is discernment. The Stoics were not passive, they were precise. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "You always own the option of having no opinion." That line alone can change your life if you let it. You are allowed to have no opinion. You are allowed to refuse the mental invitation. Not every comment deserves a counterpoint. Not every criticism deserves your defense. When you internalize this, something shifts. You stop seeing every interaction as a battlefield. You begin to see it as a filter, and you become selective. Practice this deliberately. For 1 week, commit to withholding at least one unnecessary response each day. It might be a retort you could easily deliver. It might be a correction you are itching to make. Instead of speaking, observe. Notice how your ego protests. Notice how it whispers that you're losing ground. Stay still. Let the whisper pass. What you'll find, if you're honest, is that the world keeps turning. Your silence does not diminish you. In many cases, it elevates you. You appear grounded, unshaken, uninterested in trivial skirmishes. That aura is not accidental. It is built. Seneca warned, "He who angers you conquers you." If someone can draw you into pointless engagement, they have succeeded in steering your inner world. And the Stoic path is about sovereignty over that inner territory. So ask yourself before you speak, is this necessary? Is this aligned with my values? Is this worth my peace? Make these questions your gatekeepers. Don't let words exit your mouth without passing through them. This is not about being cold or distant. It is about being intentional. When you do speak, your words will carry weight because they are not scattered carelessly. You must also confront your fear of being misunderstood. Much of your compulsive engagement comes from the need to be seen accurately. But here is a harder truth. You cannot control how others interpret you. You can clarify endlessly and still be misread. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "Be like the rock that the waves keep crashing over, it stands unmoved." The rock does not argue with the sea. It does not plead to be understood, it stands. You can do the same. When you stop trying to control perception, you free up immense energy. You become stable, not defensive. Train your restraint like a muscle. Set small challenges. Decide that for the next conversation, you will listen more than you speak. Count to 3 before responding. Let others finish completely, even if you believe you know where they are going. This simple discipline will sharpen your composure. It will also reveal how much of your previous engagement was driven by impatience rather than wisdom. You are not here to win every exchange. You are here to cultivate character. There will be moments when engagement is necessary. Stoicism is not about withdrawal from responsibility. It is about engaging with clarity instead of impulse. When something truly matters, when it touches your principles, your duties, your moral compass, then speak. But speak calmly, speak without heat, speak from a settled mind. The contrast between your selective silence and your measured speech will amplify your authority. People will sense that you do not talk to fill space. You talk to move meaning. Another exercise, each evening reflect. Ask yourself where you engaged unnecessarily. Not with shame, but with curiosity. Where did you jump in just to prove a point? Where did you defend yourself out of pride? Write it down. Then imagine how it would have felt to remain composed and detached. Visualization strengthens discipline. Over time, you'll notice the impulse to engage loses its urgency. It still appears, but it no longer commands you. The language of power is often the language of omission. It is what you refuse to dignify with your attention. It is the arguments you decline, the provocations you ignore, the comments you let fall into silence. This does not make you weak. It makes you controlled, and control is intimidating in a subtle way. When others realize they cannot easily provoke you, they recalibrate. They understand that access to your energy is not automatic. Remind yourself daily, you are not obligated to participate in every emotional exchange. You are not required to respond to every challenge. Your peace is not a public resource. Protect it, guard it, value it. When you do, your presence changes. You become less reactive, more grounded, less scattered, more centered. That shift is palpable. Power is not in dominating conversations. It is in mastering yourself. It is in the quiet decision to disengage when engagement would only shrink you. As Epictetus taught, focus on what is within your control, your responses, your attention. Your effort, everything else is noise. So slow down. Pause longer than feels natural. Let silence stretch. Feel the strength in restraint. You will discover that choosing when not to engage is not about shrinking from the world. It is about rising above its unnecessary turbulence. And when you do choose to step forward and speak, your words will land with precision because they come from a place of intention rather than impulse. That is the language of power. Number 10, inner calm as the ultimate leverage. Inner calm is not softness. It is not passivity. It is not retreat. It is leverage. And once you truly understand that, you begin to move differently through the world. The Stoics knew this in a way most people still don't. They understood that the person who governs their inner world cannot be governed by outer noise, and that realization changes everything. When you stop being internally shaken, you stop being externally controlled. That's power in its purest form. You have been conditioned to think power looks loud, quick, reactive, assertive in the obvious ways, but the Stoics would challenge that assumption. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Not some strength, not temporary strength, real strength. The kind that cannot be baited, the kind that cannot be cornered, the kind that doesn't leak through your tone, your posture, your eyes. When your inner state is steady, you become immovable." And people feel that. Inner calm gives you space, and space gives you choice. When something agitates you and you react instantly, you're not choosing, you're being pulled, you're being steered. But when you pause, when you let the surge pass without obeying it, you reclaim control. That pause is leverage. In that small gap between stimulus and response, you decide who you are going to be. Train yourself to widen that gap. Practice it deliberately. When you feel irritation rise, don't suppress it, observe it. Label it quietly. This is anger. This is impatience. And then breathe. Slow your breathing down. Count 4 in, 6 out. Again. Feel the chemical storm settle. That is you exercising authority over yourself. Most people cannot do this. That's why it's rare. That's why it's powerful. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Read that again. If your mood depends on how others behave, you are not free. If your composure collapses when someone disapproves, you are not free. If your energy spikes and crashes based on praise or criticism, you are being handled. Inner calm is freedom because it severs those invisible strings. And when you are no longer easily moved, you become difficult to manipulate. But this kind of calm is not accidental. You don't wake up one day immune to chaos. You train for it. Start small. Each day, give yourself moments of voluntary discomfort. Sit in silence without reaching for stimulation. Let boredom itch without scratching it. Notice the impulse to check, to scroll, to react, and don't. This builds restraint. It strengthens the muscle of non-reactivity. The Stoics practiced this through negative visualization, imagining loss or hardship so they would not be shocked by it. You can do the same in your own way. Mentally rehearse difficulty. Picture inconvenience. Envision criticism. Then tell yourself, if it happens, I will remain steady. You are preloading your nervous system with resilience. Calm is leverage because it shifts the frame. When others escalate, you de-escalate. When others rush, you slow down. That contrast alone creates gravity around you. Seneca wrote, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." Delay is not weakness. Delay is command. It signals that you answer to principle, not impulse. And that subtle message lands. People sense when you are not easily rattled. They adjust. But to embody this, you must stop chasing emotional highs. Excitement addiction makes calm feel dull. Drama can become intoxicating. Let that go. Power does not live in volatility, it lives in stability. Choose steadiness over spectacle. When your voice remains measured, when your movements are deliberate, when your eyes are clear rather than frantic, you transmit quiet authority, not because you're trying to intimidate, but because you are anchored. There's another layer to this. Inner calm sharpens perception. When you're emotionally flooded, your vision narrows, you miss nuance, you misread signals, but when you're composed, you see more, you hear what isn't being said. You detect shifts in tone, rhythm, intention. Calm expands awareness, and awareness is strategic advantage. Make it a habit to observe before speaking. Count to 3 internally before responding in any charged moment. Let the other person finish completely. Notice your body. Relax your jaw. Drop your shoulders. Keep your breathing slow. You are training your system to stay online under pressure. And don't confuse suppression with calm. Suppression is tight. Calm is loose. Suppression is brittle, it cracks. Calm is flexible, it bends. You are not burying emotion, you are mastering it. There's a difference. A Stoic does not deny feeling, he directs it. You can do the same. When you feel the surge of defensiveness, convert it into curiosity. When pride flares, shift into humility. This is alchemy. It requires awareness first, discipline second, repetition always. Remind yourself daily of what is in your control and what is not. Write it down if you must. Divide a page into 2 columns. On one side, list what you can govern, your effort, your words, your posture, your interpretation. On the other, list what you cannot, other people's reactions, outcomes, reputations, timing. Then commit. Invest your energy only where you have jurisdiction. This mental sorting reduces chaos. It clarifies responsibility, and clarity fuels calm. The more stable you become internally, the less you need external validation. That's where the real leverage emerges. When you don't need approval, you cannot be bribed with it. When you don't fear disapproval, you cannot be threatened by it. You become centered, rooted. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "Be like the rock that the waves keep crashing over. It stands unmoved and the raging of the sea falls still around it." That is not poetic exaggeration. That is instruction. Be the rock, not the wave. Practice stillness intentionally. Set aside 5 minutes each day where you sit upright, eyes soft, breathing slow. Let thoughts come and go without attachment. Don't wrestle them. Don't chase them. Just notice. This conditions you to witness your mind instead of being dragged by it. Over time, you will notice something subtle but profound. The space between you and your thoughts widens. That space is sovereignty. And as you build this, you will feel a shift. You will speak less but with more weight. You will move less but with more purpose. You will react less but with more precision. That is leverage, not loud dominance, not theatrical aggression, controlled presence. Understand this clearly. Inner calm is not about appearing superior. It is about being internally aligned. When your values, your words, and your actions are coherent, there is no internal friction. And when there is no friction, there is no agitation. You move cleanly, directly, efficiently. People respond to that, so train yourself every day in small ways. Resist the urge to interrupt. Resist the urge to justify instantly. Resist the urge to match emotional intensity. Choose composure on purpose. At first it will feel unnatural. Your impulses will push back. Let them. Stay steady anyway. Strength grows in resistance. The Stoics understood something most overlook. The battlefield is internal. Win there and the external conflicts lose their grip. Lose there and even minor disturbances will dominate you. Inner calm is not decorative, it is strategic. It is armor without weight. It is influence without force. You don't need to overpower others, you need to outgovern yourself. And when you do, you'll notice something remarkable. The world may still be noisy. People may still be unpredictable. Circumstances may still shift without warning. But you remain centered, intentional, unmoved. That is the language of power. Before you leave, remember this: power is rarely loud. It doesn't beg, explain, or chase validation. The Stoics understood something most people never will. Your silence, your restraint, your calm presence speak louder than any argument ever could. In a world addicted to noise, reactions, and emotional outbursts, the person who can pause, who can choose not to react, automatically rises above the rest. That's the real language of power. And once you master it, people feel it, even if they can't explain why. If this video shifted the way you see control, respect, and influence, don't let it end here. Rewatch it, apply it, test it in real life. The benefits compound when practiced, not just understood. If you want more Stoic lessons that sharpen your mindset, strengthen your self-control, and quietly elevate your presence, subscribe to the channel. Like the video if it resonated. And comment below, what situation in your life could change if you mastered silence? Remember, the strongest people don't need to prove their power. They let it speak for itself.